Now, our final reading tonight is by poet Rita Ann Higgins. Rita Ann Higgins was born in Galway from a family of 13. She left school aged 14, but did not start writing poetry until a bout of TB resulted in a prolonged recovery in a sanatorium in her late 20s. Since then, many published collections have followed. Her latest book, Jiving with Wasps, is a compendium of many of her early works with new poems included. These have been described as a witty mix of the erotic and the upfront political from a female perspective. These are provocative and heartwarming poems of high jinks and telling social comment by a gutsy, anarchic chronicler of Irish lives and foibles. They have achieved wide popularity through her regular appearances on RTE's Brendan O'Connor show, where she has been dubbed the People's Poet. So give a warm welcome, please, to Rita Ann.
Agus is an a privilege ag léamh le Iggy agus Jonah McCree Brista a géiste an birch. But anyway, I can never eat before I read, so I'm actually feeling a little weak. I may just fall over, but it's come as a job, or a job. I must remember I'm in a church. But the first poem, and you keep an eye on my time because I get carried away. I know there's no bathroom, so I'm sympathetic to you, and I'm selfish for me who's been drinking water all afternoon. Anyhow, I'd like to start with a poem called Consumptive in the Library, and over the weekend, I met a few people have had chest infections and, a bit queasy, and I'm a little bit fascinated with chest infections, or, it must be to do with the fact that I had TB, because I always want to know, how is your chest infection? How bad is it? Are you on antibiotics? Or, I just want to know, all the details about it. And one of my favourite books is The Magic Mountain, Thomas Mann's Magic Mountain, and I just read it all my life, kind of. I just read it and I pick it up again, and I love Hans Castorp and Madame Shawshire and Settembrini and all those characters up there on the mountain, and they're all sick, and they're on TV, and I just love it. Anyway, so this I'm reading first from poems that I wrote 40 years ago, when in my first book. So this was written 40 years ago. Consumptive in the Library. About you. You carry a kidney donor card not yet filled in, a St. Christopher's round your neck on a brown shoelace to ward off demons and politicians. Memories of Sweet Afton, the racing page from the Daily Express, and an unsociable cough. About me, I carry illusions of becoming a famous poet, guilt about that one time in Baltinglass, fear that the lift will stop at Limbo, a slight touch of sciatica, plus an anthology of the Ulster poets. Unlike your peers, you will not take warmth from cold churches or soup kitchens. Instead, for long periods, you will exasperate would-be poets with illusions in the reference room of the Galway County Library. I started with Heaney, you started to cough. You coughed all the way to Ormsby. I was on the verge of Mahon. Daunted, I left you the Ulster poets to consume or cough at. I moved to the medical section. And also at the time, it was, the anthology was made, it was nearly all male, and that was Little Bird I was making as using, or whatever the right term is. Anyway, I read this poem. It's called Mrs. McGettigan, and it's about sometimes you meet a person in the same place every time you see them. You happen to meet them at the same place. It's kind of weird, and this is an old poem as well. I will finish with new poems, but just to go back a bit. No coincidence was this. It was arranged by God, you would say. Me posting a letter, you were just there. You from somewhere in Ulster, I loved your accent. Me from somewhere in space, you loved my mother. You always said the same thing. Your mother is in heaven. She was a saint, but God be good to her. You lifted your eyes. You with the posh brooch, 2 stones missing, your mass hat. I was just there. Don't ever die, Mrs. McGettigan. I need to see you outside the post office, sending glances to a saint. But nobody ever says your mother was a saint, God be good to her, anymore. But people always said that when I was young. They always said things like that. Anyway, we're going to move on to the German for stomach. We're still in the body. I think I probably should have studied medicine, maybe. It's a bit late, but the German for stomach for Ida. I was waiting for the 20 past in the rain, trying to think of the German for stomach. While I was racking, I took time out for a stew fantasy. When a blue Merc pulled out in front of a brown Mini, I had stew fantasy interrupt us. The man in the brown Mini was blue and furious, but he didn't let on. Poor Rex later that day. The blue Merc made me think of blue skies and blue seas. Then it came to me, Bauch, that's it, der Bauch. I said to myself all the way home, except when I passed the graveyard, time for another stew fantasy. I got off near Kane's Butcher's. Inside they were discussing the gimp and colour of Sean Sweeney's duodenum when the doctor opened him. They called it the Northern Province. It was on the tip of my tongue and out it tumbled. Bauch is the German for stomach. His wife said, "Are you sure you don't want to carry your bag for that lobbying?" I could see that the butcher was overwhelmed. He wanted to shout, "Lapis lazuli, lapis lazuli," but instead he said, "You wouldn't put a dog out in it." Almost a short poem, almost communication. My father just passed me in his Fiat 127. I was cycling my bicycle hideous. They stopped at O'Mara's for the Connaught Tribune. As I passed, I shouted, "Roadhog," in the window. The occupants laughed. Before this, he owned a Renault 12. We called it the Ballyhonus Cowkiller. Later, we met outside the sisters. Wouldn't you think he'd buy you a decent bike-demizer? If he had your money, I said, and we laughed. The neighbours, with their ears to the rose bushes, think that we're great friends. I haven't seen his eyes for years. But my father sold me the Renault 12, and hit a cow with it, coming home from it. I used to sell encyclopedias. This is how fickle I really am. You know, you think there's depth there. I sold encyclopedias. And you know, we were just brainwashed in our pattern. And then we went into people, and you know, and it was always people really that couldn't afford them who bought them. You know, so like, if there is sin, I'm a sinner. You know, there's a good chance there could be fire here tonight. No, not really. The long word. To get back to, not to move too far away from illness and things like that. I have never seen an old woman eating an orange. The long word for the old and sometimes the odd appendix. The long word for crack, for prayer, a joke, a song, and sometimes pain. In the long word, silvermints are shared and returned with photographs of my second eldest, or this one is in Canada. Some come to visit, to care, to love, few to count acres in old women's eyes. In the long word, it pleases when the priest passes your bed. In the dead of night, a cry for somebody's son. No welcome for the grey box that comes to call. 10 legs you see, smiling mothers in new Dunn's dressing gowns. New slippers, boxes of tissues they would never use at home. Always one to joke about the black doctor. Always one to complain about the cold tea, no ham. An eye on the clock, a hand on the rosary beads, pale well out of sight. The loved grandchildren embrace good-looking oranges and ancient smiles. So, the last one in this early section is Sunnyside Plucked. We met outside the Seconds chicken van at the market. He was very American, I was very married. We chatted about the homemade marmalade I bought 2 miles from home. He said the eggs were big. I said he'd been eating his carrots. Do you always buy Seconds chickens? Only when I come late. The witch in me wanted to scramble his eggs. The devil in him wanted to pluck my chicken. We parted with an agreement written by the eyes. So anyway, moving along. Moving swiftly along. We go into the blanket man, a short one. He calls in his new Volvo, collecting the £1 a week, him and his Volvo. Sometimes if she can't pay, he says, come on, missus. If it was my stuff, I'd let you have it for nothing. Leaning against the door jamb, she doesn't believe him. Her and her cigarette. And the last one in this second collection is Some People for Own. Some people know what it's like to be called a cunt in front of their children, to be short for the rent, to be short for the light, to be short for school books, to wait in community welfare rooms full of smoke, to wait 2 years to have a tooth looked at, to wait another 2 years to have a tooth out, the same tooth. To be half strangled by your varicose veins, but you're 198th on the list. To talk into a banana on a job search scheme. To talk into a banana in a job search dream. To be out of work, to be out of money, to be out of fashion, to be out of friends, to be in for the Vincent de Paul man, to be in space for the milkman. Sorry, Mammy isn't in today, she's gone to Mars for the weekend. To be in Puerto Rico this week for the blanket man. To be in Puerto Rico next week for the blanket man. To be dead for the coal man. Sorry, Mammy passed away in her sleep, overdose of coal in the teapot. To be in hospital, unconscious for the rent ban, St. Jude's Ward, 4th floor. To be second-hand, to be second class, to be low class, to be looked down on, to be walked on, to be pissed on, to be shat on, and other people don't. And the reference to talking into a banana and a job search scheme is, we were all sent on these job search schemes, and they teach you how to use the phone to give us bananas. Okay. We're into Philomena's Revenge, and there's only one I think I want to read. One from that. It's a short poem, again. He leaves the ironing board open. He likes crisp white shirts and Tracy Chapman. He leaves the ironing board open in his mobile home near the motorway, so that he is halfway there if he ever makes the decision to go out. He plays Tracy Chapman really loud in his mobile home near the motorway, so that he can't hear the noise of the cars or the screech of his loneliness crashing into him from every side. So we'll move into, we'll go right into the second half, and then we'll do a sprint for the finish. Prism. After the man up our street stuck broken glass on top of his back wall to keep out those youngsters who never stopped teasing his Doberman Pinscher, he put the safety chain on the door, sat at the kitchen window, let out a nervous laugh and watched the Castle Park sun divide the light and scatter it all over his property. I have a list, but I never stick to this. Like Peter, I was dodging him for years. Now he's dead and dying for his shadow. And my face goes scarlet. The only time kids these days went down on their knees is when they're giving blowjobs. Father John Curran, Dunshaughlin, County Meath, Irish Times, 4th of December 1999. I'm sick of it. I've had it up to there. They never stop. Every night it's the same thing, week in, week out. They start hanging around the wall in 6s and 7s. If they're not smoking dope, they're sniffing glue. And if they're not sniffing glue, they're up the backs giving blowjobs. And I wouldn't mind, some of them wouldn't blow snow up a rope. My face goes scarlet when I see them youngsters on their knees. I shout at them. I say, go on with that, ye pups. But they're far too employed. You know who I blame? I blame the parents for not wearing protection. Just see. An awful racket. In the winter, we don't light a fire every day, 3 days a week max. Always on Saturday night though. Me and the kids sit around the fire and sing happy songs, and sing songs. The twins clap. They play Baker's Man. We have great crack. Except for Justin. I nearly had him in a taxi, that's why we called him Justin. He's 14 now, he's always angry. What good is looking into the fire like spaz? What's fucking wrong with you, he says. Then all hell breaks loose. I don't allow foul language. I didn't bring them up like that. Then the twins start bawling, and I can't shut them up. The eldest starts first. He was born 10 seconds before Paul. I say to Peter, if you don't shut that fucking cake hole, I'll throttle you. Then Paul starts. He has lungs like a broken exhaust. Last year, when things were a bit slack, we burned their father's wardrobe. We split up 2 years ago. We parted on amiable grounds, though. I couldn't aim and he couldn't miss. The kids thought it was a howl, me taking the hatchet to the wardrobe on Christmas Day. There was nothing much in it anyway, only a couple of his shirts I'd forgotten to put in the mincer. Old papers where the cat had kittens and a banjack's tennis racket. That racket caused more trouble. One day no one wanted it, the next day they all wanted it. I ended up throwing it on the fire. It crackled like lard. And I'll give 2 short ones from a sequence, or a couple of short ones from a sequence about a dancing school. They never clapped after Circules accompanied Valerie. She was 2 the first time she came. She cried and cried. I told her mother, "You're wasting my time and your money. She's a crier, not a dancer." "She dances at home," the mother said. "Well, let her stay at home," I said. I took no wolf off them at 2 or 20. Lily, she did Sugar Plum Fairy. She got 97 out of 100. Ashen little puss on her. She was bawling in her sleep. She had the runs all morning, but 97 out of 100, not bad for 3.5. Dolly, when I see her dancing there, I see me dancing there. When people admire her, they admire we. We live through our daughters, everyone knows that. After 7 kids, I'm coming back to it. I look to spit out of her, only older. When the mothers go for bronze, I'll get it, I know I will. It's just my outlook on things. And I'll just read one from that section, finish with this section now. Dolores, she gets all her notions from the telly, that one. She'd make a smashing child model, so finicky about her appearance. When she wears a dress for a couple of hours, she throws it in the wash basket. This goes on all day, every day. On top of that, she'll only wear pink. When I look at the laundry cupboard and the washing is piled 10 foot high and it takes me 4 hours to iron it, I'll know I've trained her well. So moving on to his eyes were empty. It's the I is the letter I apostrophe. His eyes were empty. The only thing I liked about my father was his handwriting. His N's were slender and mean. They had "Big City Never Seen" written all over them. His R's were turned in secret keepers. They stole or owed nothing to chance or design. His N's were nowhere now, but they had travelled to continents of isolation and sting. His M's were memorable. His mother was free. She died before she could wing him a lullaby. His N's now mine to take or leave. I took a left and lost. The spines of his K's were sentinel straight. Once teddy by wise, now corner men lonely. The watchers of history, the warmers of stone. His G's were fractured and cross, snarling like the Lichtermore mongrels at the cheating half-days of winter. His eyes were empty, except for that gulf of longing that gaped around syllables, making contact a cavity language never reached. But it isn't actually true to say the only thing I liked about my father's handwriting, but it worked in the poem. So, there you go. So, how am I for time? Am I good? 5 more minutes? 5 more minutes? Okay. So I'm going to skip on to the new ones then. But this is a short poem called Morses. On the morning my father died, the fridge was so empty you could hear a crumb drop. And 3, 29. Just going to that. We're getting there. The one weekend. It's a different book. These are coming. Nope. Subversive. Okay. So, new poems. And the Jiving with Wasps is we're the Wasps. We're the Wasps trying to get in the pane of glass, and the glass is open, but we're still trying to get in. So I use this quote from Mervue. Are we not wasps who spend all day in fruitless attempts to traverse a window pane, while the other half of the window is wide open? That's what I feel about this. Anyway, Celsius, for Dirk's Scally. It's not that I don't know him or anything, but I read this book. We're great little Catholics or something. It's Catholics in the title. What is the name of that book? Dirk Scally's book. I think it's called We Are Great Little Catholics. Anyway, something in it inspired this poem for Dirk Scally. I'm sure you'd be mortified, but you can mind the car while I say mass. You can even hop in the back and mind the car while I say mass. And if you're a good girl, as you often are, I might give you a shilling for minding the car while I say mass. And when I come back, we can both sit in the back just for the crack, and you can give me a blow-by-blow of your car-minding skills while I was saying mass. And I might give you a poke for warming the back seat and making it feel like 30 degrees Celsius, when God only knows it was as cold in here as a convert's confession begging to be told. Pandora's cousins. Pandora's cousins are small enough to be Asian hornets, but not big enough to be men. They are out of the box and flying all over the internet, harpies and harbingers of all things spiteful. They trawl and crawl and doom scroll the livelong night. They sleep when the damage is done. Their chosen subjects fluctuate between skin colour and foreigners, weight and gender. They hurl barbed slurs. They are taking our jobs and other worn-out tropes that yawn at the seams. And always with the, where are you really from? As for the chasm gets bigger, there is no safe place for the sensitive child, teenager, woman or man who accidentally fumble into their toxic arc. They knuckle down on the road less travelled, which is where they stay in the small room upstairs. Pandora's cousins multiply exponentially like a virus with no brakes, not to mind a conscience or a keyboard counted word. Rainbow swim. The Stowe crowd go out to sea, looking for scripts. They swim back, the scripts resting on their heads. The odd script and albatross. I just got on this course in Rinwile, and I was doing a film script. I went out with a full feature, and then they kind of talked me into making a TV series. That's what I'm working at. But we used to go to the pub at night, and then the next day they'd all begun swimming, and I couldn't get my head around it. Because I'm lazy, you know, I couldn't figure out how they could be in the pub and then out swimming. And anyway, so let me see, we're nearly there. The Children of Gaza, for Sarah Clancy on the Global Solid Flotilla. They are too tired to move again. They are too hungry. Their eyes say, better to die here than run the gauntlet and die down the road with an empty bowl. That's okay. that's a bit maybe too long, so I'll go on to this final one. I can find it where that. I think it's the last one. I'll finish with this, and I hope nobody's offended, but I've only ever read in a church once before, and it was also a Protestant church, I might say, down in Killaloo. It was okay, it was nice. There's no plan to be blasphemous or anything like that, but this is me. So I hope I haven't offended anybody. And there isn't anything I can do about it. But anyway, I'm so thrilled to be on ACA. Christy and I had such a wonderful, we felt we were here for a week. We've only been here for a couple of days, and I had such a good time. Getting lost primarily, tapping in the codes into the phone, and that's all okay if you're in an area that has the good Wi-Fi. But anyway, it's been wonderful, and I'm really grateful for the invitation. Fair great Thomas for. So chaperone is, remember that time when Charles Haughey was telling us all to tighten our belts, even though it's a new poem. It's written about a time, and then he was out eating those, those little birds where the napkin over your face to eat them, shop around. We were used to the put-downs in the butter voucher days of the 80s. The ortolan eater in Charvet shirt told us to tighten our belts. We were living way beyond our means. We were glued to the telly and lashed with plump adjectives. Had we no cop on at all, allowing our country to fall into so much debt. Then the days of dirty coal and superstar heaters, when the progressive demigods were shamed by their rip-off Republic troops, shop around was creed. Then came on board Snittenua. We were further whipped and guilt-tripped, get rid of half of their SNAs, we were told, and that was only half of it. We are talked down to again, this time by a junior minister who told us to shop around. While we are stung with high rents, stung at the pump, stung at the supermarket aisles, and stung at the crossroads, where precious little dancing now goes on. We are back to the time when people wear their coats in the house and leave the oven door open to heat the kitchen. They are doing it to us again. We are the ortolans. Only this time they are not covering their heads with a napkin out of shame while they are grinding down our bones. Ask not what your government can do for you. 32 politicians are going on a right old jolly halfway around the world to celebrate a saint that got the snakes out of the outside lab, while you and yours were out shopping around. Thank you.